authority. But
I can actually tell you a story about the British Commonwealth belt too.
Well, and I know that was around your time. I believe you were doing some refereeing for Marquez back then. So
yeah, no, it was
stories.
Yeah, but that actually used to be around Chris Massey or Chris Jackson.
Yeah,
referee. That was at his house for the longest time, and we actually made a John Cena referee. John Cena Christmas tree with the actual British Commonwealth belt wrapped around it. So I forgot the name we had. It was like Juan Cena or something in general. And then we actually had to go to a PWG show to give it back to Kevin Owens, or Kevin. Kevin Owens. Yeah, and I remember my brother was with us, and we did give it to somebody, and my brother Massey got all upset because my brother actually was wearing around a Denny's.
Oh no!
Called himself the champion, and like signing an autograph and taking pictures. People didn't know, but yeah, I know that belt well. I've had matches for that belt as well, but yeah, I know that belt well. So
well, it's funny that you mention Kevin Steen Owens because Kevin, like I get that a lot.
Yeah.
He actually he did a lot of training with Drew Onyx.
Exactly. Onyx is the one that owned the belt of the British Commonwealth belt.
It was his design. I think he paid to get it made. Either he made it or the UK promotion, NWA Hammerlock, made it. That's the UK Hammerlock. So it might have been, they might have actually produced the belt. But that was also at the time when TNA Wrestling kind of dominated the NWA World's heavyweight title.
Yeah.
And the British Commonwealth Championship was kind of like the closest thing to a traveling world title at the time, because you had Drew Onyx wrestling in the UK and wrestling in the United States. And then, he was doing some of the I think like Jamaica and the Bahamas and stuff like that as well. And then him and Finn Balor, Fergal Devitt were battling for that title around that time. Then the title came to SoCal and was a staple of the early Inoki Dojo, NWA, New Japan, USA, whatever you want to call it. And like I think I want to say, I know Mikey Nichols wrestled for it.
Yeah, I think it was with Finn Balor, because there was some kind of interference thing or something where Finn, whatever, involved the title change. There was actually an NWA Ireland title or something.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
I remember I actually had a title defense in a Walmart at a Jesse show in Walmart in Covina. So it was Ryan Taylor under a mask, I think wrestling for the belt, or maybe he didn't have a mask. I know he did multiple gimmicks that day, but he had, wrestled for the NWA Ireland title in a
Walmart.
At a Walmart, in a Walmart, yeah. Or it was, I think, outside the Walmart. We got dressed in the Walmart and we came out on that part. It was a Covina, the one about a mile or so from the Knights of Columbus Hall, of course.
Classic. See, I messed up, man, because when I was first got into indie wrestling, like everything, I lived near Long Beach, so like the shows that I were going to were like Orange County or LA County. So like I used to get to go to the Rev Pro shows, or John Ian's Mach 1, or even earlier UPW, stuff like that. And because at that time, like Riverside County, San Bernardino County felt like Arizona to me. Yeah. So I never went out to any of those shows, and man, I feel like I missed out, because now I live in the IE, and it's like Jesse really was everywhere back in the day. And even now, I mean, he's still running shows in like Banning and Beaumont and Covina and San Bernardino. And I feel like I missed out on a lot, because I feel like there's a lot of good wrestling happening that I missed out on.
Well, there's a lot of good wrestlers who actually came from Riverside as well. So that's where I'm from, born and raised. So
I'm going to bounce around because I kind of have ADHD sometimes.
No worries.
But one of the coolest things that I think for you, as somebody who born and raised in Riverside, and I was actually there just last Friday, was the Riverside Municipal Auditorium when New Japan Strong came there. And, I've been lucky enough to witness NXT there. And of course, New Japan Strong, I was there. That's where I got this nice one. And it's such a cool little venue, but it's, it's a historic building. It's been around forever. And to know that you got to referee matches in such a historic venue, I mean, tell me about that experience.
Well, that was probably the biggest show I did. I would say closest to home on Riverside, So
Yeah.
it was like surreal, like with it, because I got some people that come from work, and they've never seen me ref before, and just for me it was special. Also, like for TJ it was special too, because TJ's of course from Riverside as well, and he had just been a new father at the time, so he brought his son. And like his wife was backstage, and and then his mother was backstage. So it was a true moment, especially since I started. My first show I ever did was the backyard of Candice LeRae in Riverside. So yeah, so it was special, like Riverside, being close to home. I wish they'd come back. To be honest, I think that type more suits them. That smaller atmosphere, kind of suits them. It was actually a weekend show. We had two shows. We had the show in San Jose that we have annual, and then we had the show in Riverside. But back then it was done in November versus now it's January.
Yeah.
So it was a fun weekend, top it up. What the funny thing about it is I lived in Riverside, and it was the latest I ever got out of a New Japan show. The closest to home. Like I did in Los Angeles and Long Beach, and yet still got home earlier. Yet I'm here in Riverside, and somehow it was just the way the building's designed. It's hard to get stuff out.
Right.
But it was really fun. I had some people at the college, that one of the colleges or two of the colleges I was working at the time, they got to see that hadn't gone to wrestling, to see the different element that they surprised because they don't know the side of me.
Right.
But yeah, Hook Bomberry, I was just talking about the day, but he cracked up because he had been out of wrestling so long, and he didn't realize why. I understand why people were booing me. He was like, "This is odd." Like, it was odd for him because like when he left, like, and he kind of went away, like he never knew, how I got all this heat. Kind of over the years. So like it was just funny because like he explained to me, but it was funny because I got a new fan. His son is a big fan of mine, so like his son's a really nice kid, but he gets like I went to Hook's 40th birthday last year, and his son was all fanboy with me. A real nice kid and all that, but it's just funny having how you sometimes influence the people that you have no idea with it. But it was surreal. Like I said, I would love for them to do it again. I think it's a good venue for them. Yeah, I know they talked about doing it again. Hopefully, maybe in 2025. It's a possibility, but I'd love to do it again close to home. Like Ontario, we did that early this year.
Yeah, I was there too.
So that was enjoyable. That's to be able to work there also was a great moment. Actually, my mom came to see first time she ever see me referee was there, so it was right Mother's Day weekend. So I surprised her, and she really enjoyed it. So and I didn't let fans know that she was there. It was but she heard stuff about bickering. But
she might have heard me.
Yeah, she bit her lip. Like I explained stuff to her, but she really enjoyed it, and she was very proud. Of it, and like I said, it was a moment I can always remember, having mom there for that bigger show on that part. So
not that I'm bragging, but I got to see Candice LeRae make her debut in that venue, and I got to see TJ Perkins make his debut in that venue. So I feel a little I feel like I'm a part of the IE family now.
Graduated. I mean, they went to the same high school as I went to.
That's great. Where'd you go to high school?
Riverside Polytechnic.
Okay.
So
I work close to what's that school called on Chicago?
North.
Yeah, North. John North. Yeah.
I went to John North my freshman year and then transferred to Poly my last 3 years. So my mother went to Poly, her siblings went to Poly. Rick Knox went to Poly. He actually used to party with my uncle. So that's how our families actually known each other for years. We didn't realize this till years later, but actually our path crossed at some point in the 80s because my uncle had a party house. He was the youngest in the family. My mom kind of managed the house, but my uncle was still in high school. And so it was the party house for Paulie, and Knox and his older brother, which is the same age as my uncle, would party there. So we probably crossed paths many years ago, but our family has known each other since the 80s. So Knox is from there. TJP's from there. Kid Carnage is from there. Ron Cobra went there for a while. Candice LeRae was there. Johnny Starr's from there. So it's a small world.
Did you now? Were you in the same like? I'm trying to figure out ages, and I know
No.
you're not all the same age, but
I was substitute teaching when Kid Carnage and like Candice were going there.
oh
So
wow,
that's how old I am. So yeah, I'm
well,
old.
I think you and I are about the same age, though. No,
I'm 46.
yeah, I'll be 46 in like 10 days. So
Yeah, there we go. So yeah,
8 days. So yeah, okay. So we're about the same age. So like, okay, I don't feel so bad. That means you were a young substitute teacher then too,
yeah,
right? All
yep.
right. Okay, well you made it sound like you're an old man, dude. You're not old. You're like fine wine. You're just getting better with age.
Yeah.
So this is the Alliance Guys podcast. We're doing this pre-recorded ahead of Thanksgiving. Of course, if you're watching this now, you're watching it on Thanksgiving. Justin Borden is a friend of mine, somebody who I've had the pleasure of knowing for probably about 10 or maybe 15 years now. And Justin Borden got his start in the world of professional wrestling, doing a lot of the refereeing out here in Southern California for Empire Wrestling Federation and later Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Also with Dave Marquez, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, United Wrestling Network, and has moved on to working with promotions like New Japan Strong. Of course, she'll be doing Rivals, I think, which is going to be happening on the 30th,
Yep.
which is technically 2 days from when this video will air.
Yep.
So, wrestling is something I grew up with, and like we just established, you and I are about the same age. We are the same age.
Mm-hmm.
What age were you when you discovered wrestling? How did you get involved with wrestling as a fan?
It was probably, I would say, close to. I was probably 5 or 6, probably closer to 6. World Class used to come on ESPN.
Okay.
And I would actually watch it with my grandfather. So he was more of a boxing fan, but he watched wrestling, so it'd be on there. So I remember watching AWA as well. AWA from the Showboat, all that was on there. So I'd be downstairs with the big old swamp cooler they had, cool watching wrestling. So I got to see the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, to the missing Link, to Kamala making his appearance, Bruiser Brody making his appearance. Like I said, AWA, very young age. My favorite wrestler was Roddy Piper, and he was my favorite wrestler, but heel. My favorite wrestler was Ric Flair, and me and my brother's favorite tag team were the Road Warriors. I was an Animal fan, and he was a Hawk fan. So
if you had a brother that was into wrestling, one of you had to be Animal, one of you had to be the Hawk. It was just how it worked. There was no debate there.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said world class because again, we both grew up in Southern California. I was more, watching, Channel 11, Fox, watching the WWE programming. And I was one of the first houses in my neighborhood to get cable. So we were able to watch a lot of the Turner channels. So we could see, I'd watch NWA main event on Saturday, or I guess that was Sundays. Maybe it was Saturday mornings. And now I don't remember, but then of course there was Saturday night as well. And I would just dive into whatever I could with wrestling, whether it be the WWE, the NWA, hell, even Glow. When
we were actually growing up, we had the best wrestling because, I although I watched World Class, I would say the later 80s, to mid to late, Saturdays were great because you had WWE.
Yep.
That would come on. I'm trying to remember the times, but WWE came on.
I think it's 11.
Yeah, 11. But then there was also a show with Gordon Soley and Joe Petticelli or
Joe Prentice.
It was on channel 13.
Yeah,
and that was actually the first show that actually talked about independence. It would talk about continental wrestling, this week in wrestling. It was these titles changed and continental. Wendell Cooley lost, the title of this and this. It would say, World Class, this would happen on this. It would actually talk about in the Mid-South, it would actually give recognition, to it. But UWF came on. UWF used to be on Channel 5. I used to love UWF. Because UWF, especially during the time where Barry Windham was defending the Western State title in there, him and Dick matches, those time limit draws, you had the Eddie Gilbert, Sting. But that was, on TV on Saturdays. Like I said, you had WWE that had Saturdays. You had on Channel 56, KDOC, of course, where, Marquez had a lot of things. You had Glow that came on it. You had World Class that came on it. And I believe there was some NWA that came on it. But there was wrestling.
for 50. So I didn't know UWF was on Channel 5. I don't recall Mid-South UWF on Channel 5 on
It wasn't Mid-South. Yeah, it wasn't. It was just Rudy had transferred to UWF at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think it might have came at 10 or 9 or whatever. It was in the morning, but you had the Rock and Wrestling on Channel 2, and then you had of course Saturday Night's Main Event.
Yeah.
So,
and I know on 56 they also did California Championship Wrestling, which was the drizzling shits, but it was like, with no disrespect intended to Jesse Hernandez at all. I mean, it was kind of like the leftovers from the old Grand Olympic Auditorium days, and I do believe they filmed that in San Bernardino. I don't remember too much about it, but they would always promote like talents from the NWA that were coming, but they never came. Like, it was just like, oh, hey, check out this exciting new talent, Lex Luger, and he would never show up. Like, it was just a promotional machine. And then even I remember, like, because I was always just watching whatever I could find wrestling, and I would go to, like, I don't know if it was Telemundo or Channel 34, Univision or whatever it was, but I would watch like Lucha Libre.
Yeah, and I think it was 34 and 54 were both channels back in the day.
Yeah, so I would watch. I think it was CMLL, but I was really young, so I didn't really, I just thought it was cool, these guys wearing masks that were doing like wrestling moves and stuff. I was still kind of new to Lucha Libre, but that was Saturdays were awesome. And growing up in that time, like, people don't understand like how fortunate they are today with all the options of wrestling, but like at that time, we had it pretty good growing up.
See, I actually got lucky too. When I was in high school, my stepfather was a big football fan, and he got the football package. So we had one of those huge style lights that rotated. So I was the only person that got ECW. I got ECW on Sunshine Network in Philadelphia, as well as in Florida, and then another thing. So I got ECW 3 times a week. So
and then I didn't get ECW until like towards the end of their run on for us it was like Fox Sports West 2.
Oh yeah.
Like Prime Ticket.
Yeah.
And then that was and then shortly after that they were heading to the Nashville network. So like I got the tail end where I got to see, RVD pushing Brian Pillman out in a wheelchair and all that fun stuff. But like that was coming on like at 2 a.m. or something. So I didn't really watch it regularly, but that was a good time. So you grew up watching World Class. Your favorites were Roddy Piper and Ric Flair and Animal from the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors. Mm-hmm. Did you just consistently follow pro wrestling? Like, is this something you were doing your all your childhood growing up?
Like it was like, even when me and my brother would get around childhood kids, we would call ourselves the Legion of Bordens. And we had a tag team. Our finisher was a spike pile driver.
Nice.
It was always growing up. We would have wrestling matches at my house. So what would we do is get our mattresses out when the parents left.
Yeah.
Over. We would use the dining room table as the ring corners.
Yeah.
And use to launch it. And so like my mom would be like, why is this table, like, why this chair so wobbly? We used to launch off it and do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
My brother one time threw fire at me, and it caught actually a little bit of fire. So my mom thought we were like shooting BB guns or something in the house. Oh, he actually one time knocked me out with a broom, broke it over my head because, we didn't know, with it.
Yeah.
And he one time trapped me with a figure 4 leg lock where I couldn't reverse it. And so like we went all out back in the day. People got injured sometimes, but we had our major title we had was actually, remember the muscle toys, the wrestling muscle toys?
Yes.
So my brother has like the original, like all the ones, the generation, the original ones, but there was a muscle belt that you could put the muscle champion inside the belt itself. That was our title.
I had one of those. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Those are dope.
So those were that was our championship belt that we would use. So and we would really wrestle for it, friends and everything else. So
was this like, were you like a teenager? Were you like a young adult? I mean, how old were you when you were doing this?
This was probably between the ages of 8 and 12.
Okay. Okay.
Because my brother's 4 years older than me, so and his friends were bigger.
It's funny. My brother was 6 years older than me, and lots of times I was on the receiving end of the axe and smash, the demolition, where the backbreaker into the elbow drop. I got that a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then
You can't be a Demolition fan and a Road Warrior fan. Just
well. See, I was a Road Warrior fan. I was being demolitioned by my brother and his friends. It's like it wasn't. I'm an NWA fan first, so like I still
got Mass Superstar, and you got the former Russian there together. So I mean, I respect their careers because they've done a lot. Yeah, just I mean, they did what they did for money, and they made money off of it. So you can't knock them, for it. So,
what's your take on the Powers of Pain, though?
Okay, so I didn't care for them either, and I remember the feud with them. They had taken the 6-man titles from the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes, and then they split. Like in the middle of the feud, they split the WWE. So I always thought they were imitation, but I actually, through Jesse, I got to work with them a couple years ago. So there was a gentleman, goes by a Sheik, I forgot what his name is, but he had brought in Barbarian and Paul Roma in for a show around Christmas time. This is like maybe 2 years ago. And
you're talking about PCW?
No, this was Jesse at EWF, and it was a Sam Venus show. So this guy is a Sheik guy, and he likes to bring like 80s talent in.
Okay.
And to wrestle them, that's kind of his gimmick thing. He at WrestleMania was here in Los Angeles. He brought in actually Del Rio. That was a more recent guy he brought in to wrestle, him. But he brought in Barbarian, and it had this whole stipulation where it was Paul Roma. The winner got Paul Roma, and that's what it was. So that's the first time I met Barbarian, and we're going over the match. And the guy was going over stuff, and his manager wasn't there, and we're supposed to do stuff with his manager. And I just didn't do it. So I actually stepped in as a ref, and I said, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't think it's comfortable. And I also reminded him, the Barbarian's character, he's Tongan, he's strong. You can't, you headbutt him, you can't hurt him because he's Tongan. So you got to respect his character. You got to respect the Tongan, history and the heritage of that part. And the Barbarian really warmed up to me because he saw that I was really trying to protect his character, even at his later age, in his image, because he wanted to do like just like these moves, like, did it make no sense? I was like, well, that wouldn't affect the Barbarian. So he was very honored that I was respecting him and all that stuff. And he had nothing but complimenting all that because I made sure I took care of him. We did some audibles, and it worked out. And then the Paul Roma match, which the guy wound up advancing because we did a finish where they hold Barbarian. His manager held Barbarian's leg, so Barbarian couldn't get in. So he went by count out. Well, he had Paul Roma next. Well, Paul Roma had some surgery. And he had wires up his chest.
Oh shit!
And right in the beginning of the match, he hit the guy with the power slam, and it opened up.
Oh no!
So he was bleeding bad. So I called the audible and we got to take it home now. So I actually called the audible and walked them through it to finish the match, so that way for the safety of Paul Roma. And also Paul Roma was very thankful for me for looking out for him on that part. So then I got to work with the Powers. So the next following anniversary show, that following, I think May or April it was, I actually missed PWG to do that show because they requested me. The Barbarian had requested me to be there. So because he liked working with me. So I actually missed PWG to do the anniversary show. The request of Barbarian and the Warlord. Same thing. They were very respectful, really very nice guys. Warlord's still a big dude.
Yeah.
And I actually helped them with their merch during the merch. And they did really well in merch. And they tried to actually give me a cut, and I refused to take it, from them. But they were very respectful for that too. But I remember they were just a very great guy. The Warlord was a very good guy. So although I maybe not have liked them back then, I do have a lot of respect for them. And like I said, they were very, very good people. Like I said, and just like I said, good guys. And I have nothing but positive things to say about them now, having worked with them.
Did you get any heat from Super Dragon?
No, I don't think he knew the reason why. So, Super Dragon, it was, I told Knox, to clear with Knox, hey, it's a favor for Jesse, because they're requesting me to be there.
Yeah.
And it was just specifically for that match, and that was it. So it was a one match thing. And I was talked about maybe doing a couple opening matches and then shooting across, since I knew it would be later in the card. Yeah. Knox, don't worry about it. It's for Jesse. He came from Jesse as well. So he knows, understood. So I think Jeremy Marcus was there, so they were fine. It wasn't like he had to do the whole match by himself, himself.
Like Jesse's like an institution in Southern California. And I definitely don't think he gets the flowers that he deserves. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand the whole dynamic here in Southern California. For years, the territory, not the territory, but the indies out here in SoCal were really disregarded by what was happening on the East Coast and everything else that was happening. I mean, prior to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla blowing up the way it did, I mean, there was a lot of work that went in before PWG. I mean, Rev Pro with Ron Riviera, what he was doing, what Jesse Hernandez was doing,
what Bart was doing
with AWS, and even before, after AWS too, like Gary Yap's Epic Pro. I mean, there was a lot of really interesting wrestling promotions going around. UPW as a development for the WWE, and I don't feel like SoCal ever really got the flowers it deserved for that time. And when you look at promotions today, the AEWs and the WWEs of the world, and how many of those world champions that have been in AEW holding that top prize or holding the WWE, Universal Championship, they were cutting their teeth out in SoCal. I mean, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, so many of those guys had spent so much time here in SoCal, and I don't ever feel like Southern California got its just due. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, like I remember just like you don't realize, and I try to even tell the people like in regards to like to Jesse and EWF, especially the younger guys. I don't work with him often. He'll call me in for a show here. I do like the anniversary show. I'll do a show anytime he needs me. I as long as I'm available, I'll do a show. And that's minus Candice LeRae's backyard promotion, which was my original home promotion. Yeah, EWF was always home to me. So that's where I spent. We had a lot of good memories. We had a celebration of life for Liger and a whole bunch of old EWF guys last Saturday that we had. So it was nice to see. And I reflect back at the time, and actually was talking to TJ last night via text. We talked about when we have talked during the Ligers, that some of his fond memories too, like he wished that he could have gone farther with Liger because he complimented Liger. They complimented each other so well. Yeah. And, there are a lot of fond memories, and especially during that 08, 09, 010 era. I mean, EWF, look at the people who wrestled there. And a lot of people, like I said, you can go back and tie there. Even like I said, Pierce came back to the NWA World title there, a few times. And Blue Demon, I had my first NWA World title match with the red belt with Blue Demon and Ryan Taylor.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. So, like, I have a lot of great memories of it. And then I try to tell younger talents, like, not even that ring that you have is still the same ring. Yeah. And so you don't realize how many people have stepped in that ring, especially like AEW or WWE, the Bryan Danielsons, the Kenny Omegas, the Young Bucks, the Lucha Brothers. They've all spent time in that ring. So that ring, even though it might have the banner of EWF or something else, that has seen legends, that you've had. I've had historical matches in that ring, and so much history, and that's the thing is like, well, people think, say, oh, SoCal. And I remember people said SoCal's dead. SoCal's never dead, with it. We've always had great talents, whether it comes through the, local schools, whether it's Jesse's, School of Hard Knocks with the Santino brothers, who obviously were the kind of the ones producing all the talent, for a while, or not say all the talent, but all the noticeable talent that people were getting out their names. Right. You got Jeff Dino out in SoCal or San Diego, which I always call the Jesse of San Diego because it's very like the same, because they put the similar shows, Oh,
yeah, for sure.
When I tell people, like, if you want to get matches and you want to get in front of crowds, that family crowd, you have EWF, and like so you have SoCal Pro.
Yeah, there was a point in time where, like, if you look at the top of the card of those two shows, it was almost interchangeable. Tommy Wilson as the SoCal Pro champion, or later as the EWF champion, and SoCal Crazy. Obviously, the Anchors Away. A lot of those guys were kind of
double champions, or the partnerships with AWS and SoCal, all that type of stuff with it. And that's what I do miss that we don't really see much anymore, the collaborations between the different, promotions.
Was that a byproduct of Dave Marquez and trying to get that NWA banner out there? Or do you think that was more like a groundswell, more like just the promotions wanting to work together to kind of produce talent? Because, I remember, and I think you were probably, in fact, I know you were there, the 3-day tour that the NWA Pro Wrestling Showcase did, where they did one night in SoCal, in Oceanside for SoCal Pro, the next night Yuma, Arizona for like the NWA Pro event, and then the next night on a Sunday for EWF in San Bernardino, and it was like that was like a real like stop, a real tour.
Yeah.
That you don't really see that much often.
Yeah,
these
so if I
days.
remember right, the Los Luchas were on it. The NWA, I won't mention his name, but NWA Junior Champion was on that show. Was it Blue Demon on the show? Was that the one with the roller rink, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, the roller rink. Yeah, so I think the Luchas were there at the time. They were the NWA World Tag Champs. There was a Junior Heavyweight Champion, and then I think Blue Demon or somebody, I think was. I don't know if Blue Demon was champion. He might have been on the show because I think he tagged with the Los Luchas or something.
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was Blue Demon, and I think he teamed up with Infernal and SoCal Crazy.
Okay, and it was against the Luchas or something. I remember
it against the Luchas, and that was the show where there was Brian Cage, Adam Pearce, and Sean Ricker, aka LA Knight, teamed up against Scorpio Sky, Sean Waltman, and another character whose name we won't mention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, natural selection. That was Coach Cage, and multi-time. Mach 1 Pro Tag. I actually have a natural selection No Needles T-shirt in my closet somewhere. So
that story too is kind of crazy because both those guys were elsewhere. Somehow they ended up in Los Angeles. Somehow they ended up in Mach 1 Wrestling with Johnny and I don't know whose idea it was to put them together as a tag team, but man, they were amazing.
I give them credit. Rick, both of them are phenomenal. I've worked with them multiple times. But I always, when we're working with them, they were so respectful of the ref and the rules, for being a make tag team together.
Yeah.
They were very respectful. They were like, them and Reno Scum were one of those groups that they were very respectful of the ref and the 5 count and all that. And, it was just different, especially say they were not, Reno Scum's a tag team in singles wrestlers as well. But these were probably singles wrestlers thrown together, but I give them credit because they were always very respectful for the rules and respectful of the ref, and always professional.
I was there the night at Mach 1 when Brian Cage, I think he was teaming. I want to say he was teaming with Andrew Hellman.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was teaming with Andrew Hellman, and they ended up in the middle of the match. There was like a double swerve, and they ended up joining as a team that night. And it was like, all I knew is these are two buff dudes in the area, and I was surprised that I wasn't super familiar with them before, and then after that, obviously, they had a pretty wild run for the NWA Hollywood, and what they did out here was really phenomenal. And of course, both of them have reached new heights as singles competitors. Great.
Ricker, I remember people forget Ricker was former EWF champion too.
Yeah, he was the EWF champion. Did he also hold the American Championship?
No, he won the Great Goliath Battle Royal. He had done the finish. Him, I think Josh Dunbar won that year. It was a double finish kind of situation with it. But they're both great guys. Like I said, nothing but success. I worked obviously Cage even more at Lucha Underground. But both very professional. Nothing but good things. Plus, Sean Ricker is a really good basketball player. We used to have an annual on New Year's Day, like Scorpio Sky, Kevin Goodtime, Johnny Goodtime basketball thing.
Watts, right?
Yeah, Watts, yeah. But Ricker was, always him and Kevin Goodtime or Johnny Goodtime. They were the top guys when it comes to basketball.
You can call him Kevin Martinson. That's what he was. Yeah. That's what he retired as. So, here's the ADHD kicking in because I want to ask you all these questions, but Lucha Underground was such a phenomenal. Kind of almost like a Cinderella story, and sadly it kind of ended as quickly as it came, but that company also launched a lot of people's careers. Obviously Ricochet, Brian Cage had a big spotlight shined on him. Thunder Rosa really came to prominence working in that promotion, and there was a lot of people, Jeff Cobb, I think he was already working with New Japan, but he was under the mask working for Lucha Underground. How did you get involved with Lucha Underground? It was such a different project from what was happening in SoCal. How did you get involved with that?
One person, Marty Elias. So Marty had been released by WWE, and he'd been kind of being around, with it, and he wanted to get back into reffing. I don't remember if it was the same year or not, but I remember we were at an EWF show, and he had not reffed, and I remember it was a show in Yucaipa at a church show, and he wanted us to have, he had the ref itch again, so I actually want to give him one of my new ref shirts. Anytime I buy a new ref shirt, something always happens. I remember one time I bought my first official ref shirt because I was given my first ref shirt from the backyard promotion that Candace's family ran. And then I got my new one, and I did an IWL show, and that was one where Eric Cross like bled like all over. So I had blood all over it. So then I want to buy a new ref shirt, and then that was the time that Marty was coming in, so I gave him a shirt because he got rid of all his regular shirts because he was WWE and all that stuff. And so we got talking, more, and we're just talking, got to each other more because I really didn't know him much, before that. So he was supposed to do a show with me and Knox. Joe DeFalco, who runs Future Stars of Wrestling, he had his pre-Mecca show. It was like his Mecca shows before Mecca. It was called IWF. Brian Cage was actually the champion, the one in there. I mean, they had AJ Styles, they had Drew Galloway, they had, a ton of people. And so he was supposed to do a show with us out there. And at the time he was managing like in EWF and all that stuff, but he got sick. He couldn't go. Not too long after that, he texted me and he texted Knox, but he had texted us and separately, but we're like, hey, I have a show. This is not, are you interested? And so, having gotten to know Marty, I was like, oh, okay, he's probably trying to get himself figured, maybe he's trying to run his own show or whatever. So I didn't even hesitate. I was like, yeah, sure. Just tell me the date, whatever, I'll whatever, didn't ask for rate, didn't ask for anything. It was just, I'll do it for Marty because, he was always nice to me. And then as I got closer, he texts back and he's like, okay, these are the first set of dates. He's like, this is the rate, which at the time was by far anything that got paid. Right. And he's like, oh, and it's for TV. And so I was like, okay, with it. And so that's how it kind of happened. It started off slow. I remember there was people who originally were signed that actually pulled out, like Joey Ryan and Scorpio Sky and a few others. And they pulled out, then we couldn't get a crowd. We actually had to pay people to be there. So if you look at the early episodes, there was just like the crowd was kind of sporadic, and most of the crowd were like just like extras or something they played to be. And you could tell by their reactions, it's just like, oh, they're not fans, they're not real in the part. And then it took off. Yeah. And then something hit and it took off, and then it became the hottest ticket in town. And some of those people who rejected the contracts originally came back wanting to get the contracts, and then other people got interest. But I have nothing but positive things to say. It's a family. A lot of the people still talk to each other. When we do see each other shows, especially like the Lucha Brothers when they were running, it was like a family reunion with it. Yeah. I still talk to DJ, who was the co-creator of it. I was just talking to him last week. He's supposed to actually come to Rival Pro to see me and Knox with it. And yeah, he is helping with. I know at one time he's helping with that new Freddie Prinze Jr. project. Yeah. So I mean, he's a real creative guy, and like I said, but it was from the back, from the backstage guys, the PA guys, like they have Brian and Liz and Julio and everyone else, to the producers, whether it was DJ or Matt, Chris Roach, or Quinn, to the agents, like Chavo and Paul London, and MVP was there for a short period of time. Everyone was great. There was a few bad apples, but it didn't make the ship go down. It was just unfortunate how it went, because uncertainty. I remember at the end of the last season, they wanted to extend the season. By that point, we already had taped Final Lucha, so it would have just been filler. So there was kind of positive hopes that it'd be a season 5. So I always thought, though, season 4, leaving the temple kind of hurt, because like season 5 always reminds you that, when you have a show and you bring in that cousin or that nephew, right. When they brought in 7 for, Married with Children. Yeah. So it's like that. It's like that season people forgot. We went from the underground part to the Modelo sponsor on the ring and the thing. But you know what, though, like I said, the people that were great, and like I said, it's a family, and I do consider it a family. And like I was last year, a year ago, when they were in Ontario, I ran to a lot of people down there I hadn't seen in a while. I was sitting there with Shane Strickland, and just having at a catering with him, and just the same person. I'm so happy for his success, especially how he blew up this year. But like I said, just still humble as can be, and talk to Cage, Ray Phoenix, Penta, just it's always great seeing those guys and seeing those success. Nothing but love for them. But like I said, it was by far my fondest moments. period of time for anything that I worked with. Yeah, like I say, it was just a great time, and I still get asked about it all the time. Even people at work, every once in a while, I find, I love this show, Lucha Underground. Do you know about it? Yeah, I kind of know about it. And then I tell them, like, oh wait, it is you.
Check the referee.
Yeah.
Did
I usually will send them the one that says there's that me Knox and Marty did one where it says meet the referees.
Yeah.
And I'll just send them that clip and I'm like, okay. Like, oh, but they don't realize it. That's the funny thing. Like, even New Japan, I had some people that work with me as I work at Riverside Community College District.
Yeah.
And then some guys like, oh, I was at that show. I'm like, oh, you at the show? Yeah, I kind of was there. I had these matches. I'm like, oh wait, that is you. So
yeah. Well, it's funny because whenever there's a New Japan show, like I always try to see who I recognize. Obviously, you're there, but like the hobos and the working like ring crew and helping bring the, I don't know if it's production or what he's actually doing, but like just seeing him, like it's so cool to see him there and see some of the guys from SoCal get an opportunity to be showcased or get an opportunity to just get in front of a new set of eyes. I mean, it's always think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's also opportunity. Like we have the showcase that's coming up. Well, that I guess when this airs, it just passed.
Yeah.
But then the academy is they bring opportunity for students not only to learn through the New Japan, like the dojo kind of style, and learn. They get trained by Fred Rosser, who's amazing. Kushida, Cox. Oh, what's the name? Dylan. What's his name? DKC, the Karate Chop.
Yeah.
Who I love because I saw him go through such a transformation, from when he was one of Jake Atlas's, like him and Cameron Gates were like his entourage people. To make their kind of comedy deal, to see how they're evolved both as characters, but especially him. He works so hard, and I'm so proud of seeing him, how far he worked. He really adapted that style and really put in the time and effort on it. But they get the opportunity to go to these academies, they learn, and then they have the showcase at the end of the academy and get the opportunity to be in front of a camera. It's in front of a small audience, but then they get to showcase it, and that's of course reviewed by people in Japan, or it's available to people New Japan World, all that opportunities to get their faces and them out there. So there's always a good group that goes through, and that's why I go. Usually after they've been a while, I'll go like once a week, if not twice a week, to go work with them and give them insight from a referee's perspective to help them out, get prepared for the showcase.
That's really cool. I wanted to go to the last one, but that was also the same night I was as a Lucha show in TJ that I was really itching to get to. So I had to pick, and I was like, well, I'm a big Mecha Wolf fan, so I ended up going to TJ.
He's a great guy. Like I worked with him. I worked with him a little bit when they were doing the Cannabis Pro.
Yeah.
When that was running, I worked with him a lot. He's one of the guys that he's very professional. He respects referees. He really likes ones that know how to work, and stuff, and he uses them. So he's one of those guys that utilizes referees and appreciates referees and very vocal about it. So nothing but positive things working with him.
Class act all the way. There's very few people I say that I would call them a friend in the business, Justin, I'll call you a friend in the business. I've known you for a long time. Chris Massey, I'd call a friend in the business. Jay Stone, I'd call a friend in the business. Very few wrestlers I'd be like, yeah, that guy is my friend. I consider Mecha Wolf to be a friend, and I have nothing but positive things to say about that guy. Going a little bit differently here, because we were talking about Lucha Underground and how that that all the genesis of that all happened here in Southern California, and it reminded me of some other wrestling promotions from yesteryear that their genesis was here in Southern California, of course. And I don't know that you had anything to do with Wrestling Society X, but do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember watching it. I was relatively new. I think I started at the end of 2004, like literally December of 2004. But I watched it, and I enjoyed it. It was different, I know some people talk about like, oh, Lucha Underground stole, ideas and whatever. I disagree. But I think it was a different product, and I enjoyed it. I liked it. I saw a lot of guys, and even Marcus Wright, Jarrell.
Yeah.
I always call him Marcus Wright, but that's always will know him. But gave him opportunity. Like I said, he was like the mini Jack Evans. And then you see like Luke Hawx, young Luke Hawx, or you see the I would consider him a SoCal legend, like Aaron Aguilera.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
You see those people there with it. So I thought it was different. It was good. And then you had Katz, who was the hype man and everything else, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I wish it got stayed longer. Just I don't know with MTV and wrestling projects.
No, well, see, that's the next one I was going to go to. But you mentioned Marcus Riot, and you call him Marcus Riot. I still call him SoCal Tom Walters. Did you know that story?
Yeah, but like Lucha Underground USA, people forget, I was part of that first season.
Yeah. So I'm one of the few nerds on this whole planet that still fondly remember Lucha Libre USA, and it again, Genesis was here in Southern California, not far from where I live now, and I think it was Rancho Mirage or Palm Springs, at the Agua Caliente, and that first show, and I mean Lalo Gonzalez was announcing the first show, Rocky Romero was heavily involved, and there was a lot of SoCal influence on that show. And of course, it became a touring company. They were doing shows all, in the Southwest and all the way out to Florida. And like the last event that I recall, and I could be wrong, but the last event I recall was literally in Ontario, California, part of the Halloween Horror Nights. It was like a Rob Zombie type thing. And Jesse Hernandez refereed a match between RJ Brewer and Solar, where Solar won the title and then lost it to RJ Brewer in the same 30-minute span. So I fondly remember Lucha Libre USA, Masked Warriors. That was an MTV2 project. Tell me about your experience.
MTV Tres as well.
Yo, that's right. I can't forget does MTV Tres still exist?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had regular cable in a long time, so I don't know what's out there anymore. But tell me your experience with Lucha Libre USA, because that, to me, of everything that you've done, that one is the most interesting because not everyone knows about it.
So, oddly enough, I had just retired from wrestling. So it was funny because Lalo and his fiance, I think they're still engaged. I don't know if they ever got married, but they had a local radio show out of San Bernardino through EWF and all that. And even at the anniversary show at EWF, I announced my retirement. It was Sky and Ryan Taylor for the match. And I remember they even did like a kind of a send off and all that. And literally, there you go.
There, you said Scott.
Maybe 6 days later, I got contacted by TJ. And I said, I've known TJ and I had grown to know him. He already had left the area at the time.
Yeah.
And he was had one of the ones that got signed, and he had mentioned he was trying to get actually a hold of Lalo. So I was going to hold Lalo for him, because he was trying to get hold of Lalo for the gig.
Yeah.
And he told me that, the big expectations and all that stuff. And that was my first really big experience. At the time, it was kind of like, it wasn't like the money that Underground gave me, but it was a little more than I was getting at the time.
Right.
It was interesting. Like, I remember that originally AAA was supposed to be with them, and they were sponsoring the AAA video game that was supposed to come out, and then something had fallen apart where guys had defected from AAA, and then we started, like Mark Jindrak and Charlie Manson and others. And they do it cheaper, like through the independent route, and something happened. So whatever happened, and it was fun, but it was so unorganized.
Sure.
I that first show went off really well, and I wished all the other shows went off just as well. I actually had, I think, the first match that was going to air, and I remember their earpieces and their battery packs were like so bad. So I remember I wound up sliding into the ring the first match. My battery pack broke and like fell apart.
Yeah.
Well, then we had all the guys, like, half the group. It was what is his name? Or El Oriental.
Yeah.
And a few others. And so, like, we had one group that didn't speak English, the other one that didn't speak Spanish. I had no cues and all that, and we just played it by ear. It worked out, but I remember you could see me. I think there's even a picture, like, checking my back of my pack. It's like it had been gone. But I actually have some old souvenirs from it still, like the guides. But the first ones went okay. And I was actually got to meet through that I got to meet Aja Kong, for the first time, who actually had started with EWF.
Yeah.
I had her first match at EWF. And like, it was kind of disappointing. Like, she's a great person, but like, I always thought her as like a total like badass.
Yeah.
And then like, she was like the complete opposite,
Yeah.
but just a total sweetheart, with that, that's also I learned where the original Masquerita Sangrata, or the one that became the Bull, was like the strongest mini I've ever seen. I saw him pick up Mark Jindrak, airplane spin him, go him across, like walk across with the ring, and then dump him.
Wow.
It was just like crazy. So, but I remember that we finished season 1 at the Thomas and Mack Center, and it was way too big of a building, like, for them, and it was probably like 10%, if even that, full.
That was a company that, going back to the Riverside Municipal Auditorium, that would have been a great venue.
Oh yeah, but I think the Agua Caliente was perfect because it was like I think it was like pretty much capacity crowd. It was like the way the venue was, But they went Thomas and Mack, and they were running against the UFC and just all that stuff. And I remember like they kept on like delaying the show. Yeah. Like they kicked us out of the ring to do like lighting for like forever and then nothing else. And then they kept on delaying the show to hope some more people show up. And then it was just all this kind of chaos going backstage. There was a wrestler named Popora something, Principal, whatever. I never met him before. He had the biggest attitude in the world. But it was some issues he had because he had missed a flight and then he had to pay. And they doxed him to stay because he admittedly was drunk. And it was just all kinds of chaos. And I remember like sitting there, I was backstage, and Carlito was working there at the time too. And that's the first time I met Carlito, and he was cool as crap. But they had, because they had AAA guys, they had all this merchandise they couldn't sell because it was AAA guys. So it was like Macias and Cerbonetico and all kinds of stuff like they had, but they couldn't sell it. But they were bringing them to all the events and just sitting there. And I'll talk, Knox, I always kidded about him, was like, we should have, because he had a truck, like a Ranger. Yeah. And I was like, we should have just loaded a crate of these shirts. And we would have lucha shows forever.
Right.
Because I don't know where they're at, because they couldn't sell them. So they're probably just sitting somewhere in some storage, with dust.
Did you were actually touring with them then? So you were going
me and Knox didn't tour with them. They used East Coast refs and West Coast. And then when they did their tour things, I don't know, I fell off with them. And I think Knox might have done one. I know Sparky Ballard had done, some for them. And then it was like, what happened was TJ did show up. Like, I didn't see him in Vegas, but by then he already broke contract with them. So I was like, asking like where he's at. And then he's like, oh, I don't work there anymore. I was like, you could have told me something. But that's TJ. Like I said, we're good friends. And like, but yeah, it was just like that. And I think, who was the bro guy, the TNA that's in NXT now? Robbie.
Oh yeah, Rob Stone.
Yeah, Rob Stone, I think, took his place as the character, and then maybe Paul London did it afterwards or something.
Yeah, so, I knew London did it. And it was kind of like, it was kind of interesting because it was after, I think, TJ was Suicide in TNA. If I'm maybe I'm
no, this is before.
It was before.
Yeah. This was before. Yeah, because I'm trying to think how he went. Did he went, I think, with Ring of Honor and then back to TNA on the part. It was it was definitely before. And then I thought it was cool because they actually had action figures.
Yeah.
For being that what it is, the action figure.
I regret, like, that was when I was really poor. Like, I was super poor, and I would have bought all of those action figures because I don't know what it was, but I loved that show, and it was so it was so eclectic, like, because it did mix a lot of the lucha libre that I had been watching, like, some of the guys from, like seeing Marco Corleone in the United States. And then like you'd get I can't remember her name now, but she was a very beautiful African American woman who was
the one that was dating Kurt Angle. Rocker Khan or whatever.
Yeah. And I know she kind of went a little off the rocker later, but I just remember like, wow, this is such a weird dynamic. And you would see guys who were in the WWE would show up, just show up. Like you said, Carlito was there, and Paul London was working there too, and it was just such a giant menagerie, and I just loved it so much.
My favorite part was I got to actually work with and meet Charlie Manson. I was a big fan of him in AAA,
Yeah.
So at the time he was the Mexican national champion, and he was also feuding, had some feuds there with Macias and the Dark Family and all that type of stuff. So I was a really big fan of his. Watching it, I loved his finisher. So that was kind of like one of my highlights. Working there, I actually like Elmer Thal, but I worked with him previously as well. But I was a fan of his through AAA. He is, of course, a long time mixed tag team champion there. So like I said, I was a fan of his already. I had worked with him prior, but that was fun. I got to work with Raka Khan, Aja Kong, or whatever she went by at the time.
I think at that time she was Awesome Kong.
Yeah. So, but yeah, actually, it was fun. It was interesting. It was just kind of short, but that's actually how I found out my connection to Knox and my family, because my uncle had mentioned, he's like, "Oh, I watched the show you're on." He's like, and he mentioned Knox's name, like, Knox? He's like, yeah. And he mentioned it. So I'm like, Knox, like, well, this is my uncle. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So that's how we knew we found out, our families had known each other for years on that part. So.
And then that led to the blood feud in AWS.
Yes, that night I literally almost killed Rick Knox by accident. But
a lot of blood in that ring that night.
At the end of the match, he was feeling like I remember before he did his famous Rick Knox dive, he mentioned, he's like, I can't feel my legs. I was like, we gotta take it home. Like, it wasn't planned. Like, on that part, he unfortunately has a scar on top of his head because it was the DDT on the trash can that did it.
Yeah. Well, hey, all good warriors have wounds,
Yeah. I just felt bad because I had no scratches. I had no nothing. All his blood was like, all the blood on me was his. And of course, he already had gigged. And then I want to give him that unplanned, like I said, B-Boy had told us, hey, you may want to make sure you remove the lid, the handle of the lid. Like, oh, we're going to use it. And, we kind of just improv'd it, and that's what caused the cut. So I can prove you can't kill Rick Knox. That's proof.
Now, I know you said that you did some backyard wrestling in Kenneth LeRae's backyard, but like, did you ever really have any formal training in wrestling? And did you or Knox have any like training in wrestling? Or had it?
I think Knox did. I think Knox started off with, I think, the school in Knox, and then he wanted to be a photographer or start off with something, whatever, in general. And then somehow became a referee, but I know he had some training.
Yeah.
I never actually wrestled backyard. I was a ref backyard. That's how I started.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah. So long story short, Candice LeRae's family, Candice and her two brothers, she has another adopted brother, but her two blood brothers, one older Cole and one named Shane, they're actually all students of my stepfather, in elementary school. So I had known the family for years, and then her youngest brother played baseball, my younger brother. So I had known the family for several years. I was actually substituting teaching during the same time that Kid Carnage and never at Poly. And I was at a middle school and I saw a flyer. So when Bill and Jesse split, Bill used to run in Riverside off La Cadena.
Yeah.
And then Jesse went off on that part. Bill's show got shut down. Candace and family used to go to those shows. And so I saw this flyer and I told my brother and our buddies who used to go to the wrestling show at Bill's, hey, there's a wrestling thing. And then so I got to the house and I'm like, I recognize this house. And I'm like, went to the backyard and I was like, wait, I know this family. So I was just going to shows and talking to them. And then one day they didn't have a ref. And they asked me to ref. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess, like, I don't know what to do. Like, well, we know you know wrestling. And then it turned to one show and they asked me the next show. And then I wound up becoming their regular ref. And then they actually had a mainstay ref there who was a friend, like a high school friend. And that's why I get like my Twitter or X, whatever you call it, and my Instagram, and I'm never on it. The main ref gimmick is because when he came back, people started requesting me in even the backyard. And so he reminded me he was the main ref back there. So that's why I use the main ref on that part, because it's an inside joke of how I got reminded, with it. So it was a fun time. We did a few outside shows. There used to be an Orange Blossom Festival here in Riverside.
Yeah.
And so we did those fairs, and that's where I got to meet TJ. I got to meet Scorpio Sky. I got to meet the Young Bucks for the first time.
Yeah.
The Red Tornado and stuff like that. So
Red Tornado.
Yeah.
Jimmy Morgan.
Yeah, Dr. Morgan, another doctor.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it was a good time. And then what happened was, first time I refed, if you could find footage, I have like a beanie, and I think I might have sweatpants. It was just I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
So I definitely have evolved from that to my custom boots and different color belts and everything else, different color pants. So I definitely evolved in style wise. But yeah, it was. But like I said, it was nothing to take it serious. But all the people there were training, and then it was funny is that Candace and her family would do multiple characters. So they have like a lucha character under a mask, and they had the regular character. And it was a fun show. We drew some decent sized crowd for a backyard. And I said they wasn't just backyard; they were actually trained. A lot of them trained with Jesse or Bill. They were using Bill's old ring at the time.
What was the promotion called? Do you remember?
UWC, United Wrestling Council.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm pulling all these connections together because I remember the UWC.
Yeah. So it was Ron Kilborn. I remember in Kid Carnage one time had a match, and they had a angle where they had they turned or something happened where Candace's adopted brother, and they handcuffed him to the rope, and it was like a hot outside day, and they handcuffed him tight, and then they threw the key away, but they threw it to this dusty dirt lot next door. Yeah.
So
they eventually got him off, but it was like he was stuck there because the key had been thrown to like oblivion. So, but it was fun times. Like I said, Ron and Carnage were my writing partners when we did like some outside shows. Like we did the Special Olympics by the Pyramid at Long Beach State. So it's kind of funny that doing the Pyramid show and wasn't remember doing it outside way back when. But then like it was what happened was like just they closed. They wanted to go and something didn't happen. It closed. So I just stopped reffing because it was like, oh, it was fun. Yeah. And it was just through encouragement. People come, EWF needed a ref. And so I started there doing like the opening matches and involved. Another funny story is I actually got kicked out of the School of Hard Knocks. I never went there to train. I went there just because I saw in the back of a Pro Wrestling Insider magazine, advertisement. So I went to go check it out. Bill and Jesse hadn't split at the time. Bill was conducting class on a Saturday. Like I said, I was a nerd. Like I told you, I would read. My brother would print out stuff. I read the PWIs inside and out, know all the stuff. And I remember Bill was talking to class about something that happened at FMW because he wrestled Starman out there, all that stuff. Yeah. And I remember reading results and vividly and all that, and I corrected him. So I was, I think, 19 at the time. So
sure.
I was disrespectful. I understand now. And so I was pretty much asked never to come back. So funny thing, I want to be in, years later after the split, I wound up working for Bill. When he had a couple comeback shows, and then I wound up working for Jesse, of course, for all those years. So, but I was originally kicked out of the School of Hard Knocks for my disrespect, which I understand.
Bad boy.
Yeah.
So in shortly after working with EWF, then it just kind of seemed like you were working everywhere, AWS, NWA Hollywood shows. I was trying to think of like all the places you've worked, but I don't know that I could list everywhere that you worked because there's been a lot of promotions, from San Diego all the way up to like Santa Barbara. I think you've worked in quite a few wrestling promotions.
Yeah.
Which like I'm trying to think, like I know there was AWS, of course, Hollywood. I think you worked for Jeff Dino. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I've done. He's those ones I could say. Well, if he needs me, he's contacted me. I worked that's recently, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I worked like maybe 2 or 3 shows in a row for him because his ref had left. I think to Chicago, his main ref, he needed a ref. He had a new guy starting off. I think the guy from Chicago came back. He hasn't used me. No hard feelings. Like he knows, if I'm available. And there's times where he has tried to hit me, but I'm just not available.
Sure.
But yeah, the main for the longest time was the main 3 were AWS, EWF. Actually, I worked SoCal Pro. I worked Mach 1 on and off.
That's right.
It was always hard because they were running against EWF, because they worked every Friday. I worked when Millennial Pro came back the first time.
Yes.
Time came back, I was regular ref for them. I worked maybe once a year for them. Usually it's just a favor show or I just miss them as a great guy. It's just so far away from me.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, you always have those promotions that come and go. You know, the ones that always talk about revolutionize everything, or the ones that come and go. I've had a handful of those. I did Vavoom, PWG, of course. I did. I'm trying to think what else that's noteworthy. I did IWL when IWL was hot. IWL got really hot for a while.
I think using the Bucks, I really think helped IWL kind of catch a little bit of heat, and they were running in like I think it was Chino, Ontario.
They never should have left Chino.
Yeah,
they left Chino because they couldn't sell alcohol. If I remember right, that's where I think Winter Pro runs now.
Yeah,
they were drawing well. They were getting people in. They were doing those streaming, and I remember one it got crashed. The one was the Bucks versus John Morrison and Johnny Suave. But they were getting good numbers and everything well, and they moved the venue, and then there was a whole fire incident that happened, like with a fireball, I think in a match with Ray Rosas and Eric Cross, and then it just never came. They did another show, that one last show at a rodeo. It was a double snake or double cobra tag team tournament. They had Teddy Long.
Yes. Okay, that wasn't a fever dream. Yes, I remember that.
That was the last show I remember they run. I was working on another show. Might have been PWG that same day.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work it on that show. And then that was like the last show. I know they obviously probably overspent. But Vic was always great. I have no bad things about him. That's when I really started working with Paul London. And I always like working with Paul. He's a great guy, great mind. Though I first I met him when he was dating Candace, and I had a match at AWF that was so awful. But he's another guy that about burying the ref, like not like respecting the refs.
Yeah.
I remember he had called everybody in the match except me, and he said like, "There's nothing you could do. They buried you," and he went and yelled at all of them and just said, "There's nothing you could have done about it. You did the best you could."
Yeah.
But IWL was when I started working with him. It was actually that match where I told you I got a new shirt and got all full blood. But I started working with him. Like I said, and he just started kind of requesting me more to work with me more. And that's how I kind of got branched out too, is because it was either word of mouth, and then TJ, helped me because TJ could get booked anywhere. Yeah. So he liked me as a ref, so he would request me a lot of times as a ref, so it would get me in more places. And so I'm trying to think of Law. I thought Law was a great promotion. That was the Los Luchas promotion.
Yeah, I think it was just like Los Angeles Wrestling.
Yep. So that was a great thing.
Did you ever work with the FCW? That was like the Joey Chaos.
One time, I worked the one. There's Scorpio Jr. just passed.
Yeah.
And I worked the show when he won the title.
Was that at the Grand Olympic? Did you get to work there?
No, it wasn't Grand Olympic. It was I forgot where it was at. Maybe at El Monte or something. I forgot what it was, but it was a great brand show. I worked. The original La Parca was there. Scorpio Jr. was there. Like I said, I worked with that show. I think I did a few other shows, not the big ones, but they did do like like police departments have those local like nights out play show. They had kind of I think a couple small ones that they ran through there that I did, but I only did one of their bigger shows. And then I did Apex Pro, of course, did that. I did Lucha Pro for a while.
What about Mayhem Championship Wrestling?
Yeah, actually, I was originally booked for that one. That was with Peter. That was when Brian Cage was champ. I think James Morgan was originally champ, and Brian Cage, they had the wing angle, and they kind of changed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
On it. Yeah, I actually just tossed that shirt. I had the ref shirt there, and I was like, I never got to wear it. I remember it was one of those ones. Rocky was involved with that one too, but I remember it was one of those ones again. We're going to change wrestling. We're going to change that type of thing. They had custom ref shirts, with the logo and all that. And then I think he just didn't book me. Like I did a whole photo shoot thing or something.
Yeah.
And with it, and then just never used me. So I think I was going through my old ref stuff, and I was like, well, there's no memory of this because I didn't do it. So I think I gave it to Goodwill or something. So I remember him.
All right, well, let me know which Goodwill so I can go pick it up. how did you get into New Japan Pro Wrestling? Because that's kind of a stretch, like obviously, I mean, look, TJ, Rocky Romero, there are some SoCal guys who have been heavy in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but was it just them putting in a good word for you, or how did you get connected? Because I mean, New Japan Pro Wrestling is the second biggest wrestling promotion in the world, and the fact that their American version is like almost on the same level as like MLW or the NWA here in the United States. New Japan Strong, I give them a lot of credit because what they're able to do, they're running smaller arenas, but I mean, like Ontario Arena is a pretty big building. They're going to run the Pyramid in December here in Long Beach. I mean, these are pretty big venues, and they've been doing this pretty consistently. And that's just in Southern California. They're also running in Northern California and all across the U.S.
Chicago had a good crowd. I worked that show earlier this year in Chicago.
I think you're going to the Paul Songus Arena in Massachusetts.
And then there's the San Jose show always does well. It usually always sells out. And I like that venue. It kind of reminds me of the Riverside Municipal because I think it's a perfect size. I mean, I think it's a little bigger, but the one we run, the Civic Center, it's like no seat is a bad seat. Like you can have like the top seat in the very far back, and it's still a great seat there. Like it's just a great place. And I think those venues will work best for them, size wise. And I think even AEW would benefit from running shows like in those type of things, full crowds all the time, guaranteed on that part. But New Japan, credit one person in general, another referee. Once again, like Marty got me into Lucha Underground. It was actually Jeremy Marcus who got me into New Japan.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I felt bad too because Jeremy, working with him and other promotions, and he's a great guy, and I'm glad he's doing well on NXT. I remember during the Hate stuff when I was part of Hate back in other promotions out there, the whole angle of me being bad ref and all that stuff. I had been banned from ringside. That one Knox was the main ref and inside the cage, and Jeremy was outside, and so I did a whole spot where I come in and help Tito win the belt. With it, I remember on that spot, I literally legit low blow Jeremy and kind of hit him hard.
No.
So there was that. And then during an angle with Ray Rosas and Hate again and Douglas James, there was one where I just spit water all in his face and stuff like that, but he's always been a good guy. And I actually wanted, when Rick Knox got hurt in season 4, Nick would need to be up on helping him, but one of the names I suggested was Jeremy. Unfortunately, Marty didn't know who Jeremy was at the time, but Jeremy definitely was somebody that was coming up at the time, and I thought could do it. And I know he would have done a great job, but just Marty didn't know who he was. He got to work with Marty because actually Marty did a lot of like one-on-ones with Jeremy, and so Jeremy does credit Marty helping him with progression. But no, Jeremy got me in, and he was. I talked about it. This is during the COVID time. They done stuff before, obviously out there, but this is launching the Strong brand. So I'm the old guy originally from the original Strong moving forward. So I'm an OG. So it was fun. He got me in. It was funny is that I would help with the ring, and since I didn't ever really got into wrestling or trained or never had trained, I've never done ring before. Really, like I've helped out here or there to help out, but I've never done ring crew. So I was doing New Japan Ring, which is a huge ring and a lot of stuff. So I was doing ring crew for the first time. So I would do the breakdown the dojo. But it was a learning experience for me, with it. And I do enjoy it. And I guess was paying my dues on that part. But I got to meet a lot of great people right off the bat. I remember we were, one time we had to do a breakdown. And so they had some of the guys from Japan there. And it was Kojima and Tanahashi.
Wow.
Sorry. It was Kojima and Nagata. They were rolling around, and it was time to do the ring, and they were so apologetic, because they're like, "Oh yeah," but I remember they were doing their thing, and they both came out and rolled out of the ring and just introduced themselves. And I was like, "These guys are legends. These are superstars. Yeah. I mean, not just in Japan, but worldwide. If you know wrestling, anything about wrestling, I mean, these guys are legends. All together."
Yeah.
That's why it gets me. Like you have people in these locker rooms, and even today, they have these attitudes. They haven't done nothing. You have these two legends who are just, they didn't need to introduce themselves. I should have introduced them, but they came to us, and and they knew Jeremy already, but to me, and Paul Jack, oh, can we like 5 more minutes? So sorry, like, don't take your time, like, we'll wait for you, But he opened the door, and like I said, it was great. Those strong times were fun because we were isolated to hotel. We obviously no crowds.
So you were doing the shows in Port Hueneme then?
Oh yeah. So we would do multiple shows. We'd stay maybe like 3 days.
Yeah.
And do tapings and stuff like that, and just and a lot of times I would Jeremy or with Hobo or Justin, and then our tradition was the last night we were always taping. We always get Cracker Barrel, and so the thing is, I, believe it or not, a very picky eater. So like I like my burgers like I'm plain, and you might have seen posts about it. Like, and Knox knows, anybody who travels with me, I want a plain burger, like McDonald's. I just want meat and bun. They want it with cheese all the time, or want, whatever. It just always mess up my order. It's like most simplest order, just meat, bun, done, and they always mess it up no matter where we go. So Cracker Barrel would always mess up my order somehow. And so the one time they got my order right and they didn't forget my cornbread or whatever, I actually wound up choking on cornbread.
Oh,
it was like kind of dry. And so we're watching Choco Pro, and it was me, Adnan, Justin Morales, Jeremy, and it might have been Julio. And I really started choking while we're watching this with Pro. And Adnan laughed at me. I was giving him a case. So then Justin Morales did the high mic and spit it out. But so the one time they didn't mess up my order, I actually almost choked to death. So, but it was fun times, working with the guys, and because we're so isolated, and it was a good little group, with it. And everyone in New Japan was great to work with, especially, Tonga Loa. I worked a lot with Hikuleu, which I'm hoping to see his debut really good, with it. And, Jay White and Juice and just everybody. Everyone was like really super cool, Brody. But it was a fun time. It was like a nice little like family type thing, because it's all we had at the time when we were doing the tapings, so it was fun,
How awesome has it been for you to see a guy like Bad Dude Tito, who had been putting in the work for 15 years in SoCal, and it feels like he was an overnight success because all of a sudden he's wrestling in the UK, he's wrestling in Japan, he's wrestling in Mexico, wrestling in Canada, he's showing up in AEW, MLW, New Japan, CMLL. The guy's everywhere, and it only took 15 years for everyone else to kind of see what we all kind of saw him back in the day, and it just for me I like bragging about this guy because I've watched him for so long, and it's like he deserved this 5 years ago, but now he's finally getting some of that recognition. How cool is it for you? You guys were in the same stable together.
Yeah,
now you get to see him.
I don't know if you know the trivia. I always tease Tito about it, and I even was talking when I met his lady at the last Rival Pro show. I reminded her, I own him. I'm 1-0 against Tito in wrestling, so I owe a victory over Tito. So that's why he come out and when I had my match against Ruben Iglesias at one of the Lethal Lotteries, that he was my manager.
Yeah.
When my match with Knox, actually he was supposed to be my second. So he was originally, because the whole deal was helping him out, the scene before Hate. He was supposed to start the match and then start with the F5 on Knox to begin the match, and I tried to get the win on that part. The other two guys, Cadillac and Chowder, were just replacement. His son had broken his leg, but he was supposed to be my second for that match. That was the original goal. So him and Mondo were my group. And of course we worked together in Hate, and we worked a lot. I worked as his referee or his manager. But yeah, it's great. I actually remember when he had his first match there, it was against Juice Robinson. And I remember Juice Robinson took a liking to him. And that was the one thing that I would say was good, especially with Juice and Jay White and other people there. If they liked something, they would encourage, stuff on it. So I remember then after that, he got connected to the Chicago show. I think it was on there. And that was the big street fight with Bronson Reed or, Jonah at the time.
Yeah.
And then, Juice and then Brody and Shane Hayes. Was it Shane Hayes? No, I think it was Dave Finley. And I'm missing one person. But I remember also that match, Tito almost died. Eddie Kingston gave me props because they did a whole thing with a whole bunch of chairs, and Juice went to go give him a Frankensteiner off the top onto the chairs.
Yeah.
And one of the chairs, the last chair he threw, stuck and had the legs up.
Oh no.
So if he would have taken it, like he would have been spiked on the legs. But it's like I grabbed it, I saw it, like nope. I grabbed it and I tossed it. And everybody at Kingston gave me my props for like, taking care of making sure that no one got hurt, on it.
So not only do you have a victory over Bad Dude Tito, but you also saved his life.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But yeah, like I said, yeah, it's awesome. Then you got the thing with Jonah, and got the time during G1, and you got to, be a second. And at the same time, Royce was out there with Tom Lawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's another guy too. Him and Jarrell. Like, I wished honestly they could do World Tag League. They deserve it. They're original guys from Strong too, like from the beginning. Yeah. Hopefully, their time comes soon for the Strong titles because they destined, for that, and they're well deserving of it. They've been around, like I said, since the beginning of it, and they're great guys too. So, but yeah, no, it's awesome for Tito. It's awesome working with him. Seeing him, and he had success at MLW as well. Like I said, hopefully he can get back to Japan. Maybe Wrestle Kingdom and stuff like that. And then you've seen Che now, working with him, and hopefully that they can kind of wind him in. Because I remember with United, technically him, Che, and Shane are still the tag champs at United, I believe.
Right. It's a weird a combination of the Wolf Zaddies and the TMDK, and I think it's like the TM Zaddies or something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but
I know Zach loves Tito. They've tagged quite a few times now together, and I helped them get the CMLL. He likes Che too, and so I hope it works out. But Che's another guy. He's a great guy. Has the look. Works hard. Phenomenal physique.
That's another guy I can't believe that just isn't signed somewhere yet, because like not only are they body dudes, but they can work. And you could put them almost anywhere. And I don't see. I love going down to TJ and watching Lucha Libre, and there's a promotion called Lucha Libre which has ties to CMLL, and they use the Wolf Zaddies quite frequently. And when you hear Tito cuts the promo in English, and it's fine, but then Che gets on the mic and he's cutting the promo in Spanish, and it really resonates with the TJ audience. It's so much fun, man, and those guys really just run roughshod over there, and it's cool to see their success too. Yeah.
No, it's hard. I remember talking to Zach, or talking about general bodies. He says they don't realize how many people are signed to CMLL. There's a ton of people. Now I know they have a ton of champions. They put it on a ton of shows, but obviously it's harder to break through. But I still hopeful with it. They can go back to maybe do a tag out there, because if they go over well, like I said, they look, and hopefully through New Japan, the working relationship, they get more. So especially adding Che into it as well, but wishing nothing but my hate people love, even though now there's a group in Japan called Hate. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a women's faction, I think, in Stardom called Hate.
Okay.
But we didn't use the last dot, so we were H.A.T. just E. They actually used a dot, but yeah, they're called Hate. Damien Arsenic had pointed something about it, so
they ripped you guys off, man.
So, but I don't know if you know the story though. Is actually when we kicked Bateman out, we were supposed to replace Bateman with a person who's a heel now, and it would have been his first heel turn, and he's an AEW. So, Jungle Boy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So Jungle Boy was originally a goal was, and me and Ray Rosas were at dinner. I missed his wedding because of a PWG show, and so I had to make a dinner for them, and we're sitting we're talking about how Bateman didn't need us because at the time he was like United Heritage Champion and AWS Heavyweight Champion. I mean, he was doing great. I mean, Bateman's Bateman. He's another guy that deserves so much.
All the flowers.
And he and so we're like, well, who replaced him with? And then it was actually Jungle Boy, came up to it because we came up to him, we're like, we wanted a cruiserweight representative at the time. Yeah. And so I remember we hit him up, at the time he was on Facebook and stuff. And he was at UC Santa Cruz as a student over there. And we told him idea, and he had talked about like Fern Owens wanting to turn him heel, but he wanted to make it worth something, you know, like that Dungeon Championship Wrestling or something like that. Nothing against that, but he wanted to make it worth something to get, you know, with it, since he was such an over face. So
Right.
we gave him an idea. We're like, you know, he'd be the cruiserweight representative. We even talked about possibly even using like the 90210 music, then scratching to something else, you know, with it, play on the part. And he was all for it. You know, his dad was always very supportive of his wrestling career. So he, you know, was willing to come down when needed, you know, to do the show.
Yeah.
But everything with hate, you know, we actually, as a group, you know, we would discuss, and it kind of had a split vote. So, unfortunately, you know, it didn't happen, but that was the goal. And he was to be a cruiserweight representative with the possibility of having Buggy being like his valet. So
that would have been pretty interesting.
And it had been one of those ones where it was, the idea was that like he would care less about her and like treat her like, but she would always just be loyal to him type thing.
Sure.
He just be this cruiserweight that, because he was talented, you know, he would just, you know, because his talent, he'd be a dick, but at the same token, so talented, you know, he would win, you know, still find a way to win, or use Buggy as a way to win, and then just chuck her aside or something type thing. And he would have maybe kind of even though Peter Avalon was using the time, the kind of the crop top, you know, type thing. It'd be kind of a Stevie Richards kind of type of thing deal.
Sure.
The goal originally was when we kicked Bateman out, he would be like ringside working like staff and then jump on that part. And that was the idea we were going to have. It didn't happen. I remember when they gave at Hollywood, they gave Dave a hate t-shirt. I remember he was still on Facebook at the time. He did a little like sad emoji, you know, because, you know, we didn't put him in it. You know, Dave technically was not, he was just a whatever, but it was a fun time. You know, I don't know. I always asked to be a hate promotion, hate reunion. I don't think it's possible, but it would be great to have it, you know, with it. It was an enjoyable time. You know, there was a time where we kind of ruled SoCal. So.
And what was really unique about that group is it wasn't just cemented in one wrestling promotion. It kind of spilled out to everything. So it was it was everywhere. And it was very NWO-ish for SoCal, because it wasn't just, you know, you guys kind of were taking over in that sense. I don't want to keep you too much longer, and I do appreciate you spending some time with us, but let's talk about the next two big shows that are coming up. Obviously, Rival Pro will be happening this, I believe it's Saturday, November 30th. What's going on with Rival Pro? How did you get involved with them, and what can the fans expect from this show?
I think it's, I would say you're good. It's a family show. You bring kids, you know, not super young kids, but kids maybe middle school or older. You're going to get a good kind of family PG-13 show of good talent. You know, it uses primarily local talent, you know, which is kind of hard to see nowadays. But usually people bring fly-ins and all that type of stuff. We will see a lot of good talent. The main event is Tito versus Royce Isaacs. So definitely a solid, you know, both of them have great ground games, you know, ground game. Both of them just really talented guys, both powerhouses. So it should be interesting. One of my favorite guys, you know, who's been used for New Japan, you know, over the while, and hopefully gets back. He works CML a little bit too. Adrian Quest. It's always great to see him there. The Suavitos, you know, as well. Like I said, a great show. Like in general, it'd be actually one of the few times that me and Knox work together. We rarely work together anymore with the closing of. I mean, it's assumed the closing of PWG. I unfortunately see it running anytime soon, but you know, we really don't get a chance to work each other anymore. We just saw each other. We did a reunion with Patrick Hernandez, and we had a nice lunch together. So actually, he's supposed to be joining us. You know, he won't be reffing, but he should be there at the show. So Patrick Hernandez will be there. So it'll be the old school guard of referees of SoCal, but we'll both be there reffing. Hopefully, you can get along for once. But yeah, it's a great show. Like I said, you know, it's a stack show altogether. You know, very reasonably priced. It's at Baldwin Park, you know, where many people have run before. You know, Mordo will be like bar. But yeah, like I said, a good fun show. You know, good solid times. Like I said, you can bring your family, bring a date. You know, bring something. It's enjoyable. You know, from opening card to the main event. So once again, Tito and Royce Isaacs for the Rival Pro. I started with them kind of towards the beginning, and then I kind of worked sporadically, here and there, and then kind of rejoined them when a ref left, and the spot left, and then kind of been with them since with it. So, but yeah, good family show. Like I said, it's a family that runs it. Rob, goes by the champ. He's a big chili guy, Billy, chili kickoff champion guy, but he runs it with his wife, and it's a very, like I said, friendly thing. Nothing but respect there. Good peeps. If you come check out the show, definitely come. Like I said, once again, on the 30th, a few days away, and it's the last show of the year for them. So, like I said, definitely worth your money and worth coming out.
And then, of course, the big show. You can help me out with the date. I believe it's December 14th at the Pyramid.
15th. It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
Sunday the 15th, the Pyramid. So we did a show about a year and a half ago with the Pyramid, which was the big women's tournament. The main event will be actually Mercedes Monet defending the same belt that she didn't win that night the first time in the main event there. Stack card, with New Japan, Stardom, and AEW, and some CML guys. Got a different clash of guys. You get Leo Rush versus I forgot how to pronounce his name, but the big dude that moves like a mini or like a lightweight. But a stack show all together. Local guy, Jack Perry will be there. He's with, Kakeshka, in a star-studded tag team match. Like I said, you got, Gabe Kidd there. You actually got guy, J Cal, J Cafe, sorry.
J Cal, I'm not booked.
Yeah. Like I said, J Cafe, another guy that's I'm glad getting a shot at New Japan. He, of course, joined the United Empire. Based out of Arizona, spent a lot of time in Las Vegas, but definitely actually wearing his sweater, his old tag sweater.
Nice.
With Cody. But yeah, it's another stacked show. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. Bad Dude Tito will be there. But another stacked show, well worth the ticket price. Tickets are still available.
Yeah.
I think tickets are like $29.
Yeah. And I'm planning to be out at that show. I'm very much looking forward to it. I had a great time at the New Japan Strong event that happened in Ontario. And of course, there hasn't been a bad show associated with New Japan in SoCal, but the New Japan Strong shows I feel are special because, again, although Strong has been all over the U.S., kind of originated out here in SoCal.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, it definitely originated out here in SoCal. Like I said, those old Strong memories, the first one they had, Resurgence, the one at the Coliseum was great. It was a tiring day, but it was a great day. But yeah, all the shows, and they don't, the stars are there. It's a great card. Could you get a ticket starting at $29 to see just a star-studded show? I mean, you can't beat it,
And the Pyramid's a good venue too. It's a real. It's meant for Long Beach State athletics, but it's a great venue for pro wrestling. There's not a bad seat in the house either.
Yeah. No, like I said, the last show, I remember the last one I did, I had it was Tanahashi and Ospreay, which not to say much, I think was match of the night that night. But like I said, there's not really, it's not a bad match. You'll see some up and comers, Matt Vandergriff, versus Zane. They're both outstanding. And Matt's been around for a while, Santino trained, so locally trained. Now he's based out Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a little undefeated streak like that. Great, like a guy. But he went to the academy as well, Yeah. You got Zane, who's also went to the academy, an amazing guy, just super athletic. But the dude puts in the work. He's at the academy all the time. He doesn't take anything for granted. He puts in the work, and that's one thing that you credit New Japan. You put in the work. Nothing is just given to you. You really put in the work, and they expect you to put in the work, and not only when you're just as you get there, it doesn't mean you stop putting in the work. You have to continue to just put in the work. So,
right.
It'll be another fun show. I don't know what match I have yet, but I usually have. Like I said, whatever match I have are always great matches. And I think myself will be there, Taito will be there, I believe Scarlett will be there, and Chad Rico. I think we're the four that will be officiating there that night.
That's very cool. So we'll wrap it up there, but I do want to give you an opportunity to just plug your socials or plug anything else you want to for the evening.
Okay. I would say my socials. I mean, on Facebook, I'm just who I am. I didn't learn about this in this trade that you have gimmick names. So I am Justin Borden. You'll see me in my doctoral garb. So that's me. And then on X and then Instagram, which I'm really on. Usually you get more direct messages and stuff like that. I am the main ref 123, as I pointed out. It's a gimmick inside joke. Yeah. That my name actually was Impartial in I think it was Impartial in SoCal Uncensored.
Yeah.
I think it's nice to see that it's going up again. I don't know if you're involved with it at all.
Only in name. Like Steve, I love Steve. I love Steve. And he's got, he has a travel YouTube channel that's just killing it. And I mean like millions of views. I think it replaced his daytime job. So like I wish I actually offered to buy SoCal Uncensored from him, but he wasn't really listening to that. So I said, okay, man, well, if you need me, let me know. And it just really hasn't ever come back to it. But
it was a big thing I remember at one time. And, I mean, I always looked forward to the Hall of Fame, with it, and like, I don't think that's been done in years, with it. And I think it's important to recognize. I mean, Joey Chaos does the one to the Santinos, which is important, but I think there should be like a universal one to SoCal. I mean, not to say there's any bias, because, Joey's a great mind and, it's, all selections are worthy of it.
Sure.
But, that before like SoCal, used to be something, and, I think it'd be important to have it and keep it going. I hope it resurfaces, but it was nice seeing it on social media now. Starting to post a little bit more, I don't know, but Andrew or someone that's dealing with it, but
yeah, it might be Andrew. He and I haven't really spoken in a little bit. He was running Epic Pro Wrestling Los Angeles, so I'm not sure if he's back at SCU. I don't know if they have somebody else running it, but I always have a soft spot in my heart for that place. And
I was hoping maybe one day I'd be in the Hall of Fame there. I don't know.
Well, you certainly you're making a case for yourself. The time spent and where you've been and where you continue to be, and there's definitely some recognition there that should be. I'm all about giving out the flowers. Like, we don't need to wait till someone passes away to recognize that their contributions to the industry, to the sport, to the zeitgeist that is Southern California pro wrestling. So, if no one ever told you, Justin, thank you, because obviously, the scene was better when you were here. And of course, like that, it does make a difference. And so I want to wrap it up here because I kept you a little bit longer than I was planning on it, but I really do appreciate the conversation, man. And it was a good time. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, no, I definitely enjoyed myself. And if we even talk any PWG, we could actually spend a whole session just on that.
That's what we're going to do the next time you come on. We're just going to talk nothing but PWG.
I enjoy it. Like I said, I enjoy talking wrestling. I don't, not as active I used to be, just kind of by choice, but I do love wrestling, and it's a big part of my life and great fond memories I'll never forget. So it's always nice to share memories. So,
well, again, thank you for your time, and we'll hope to see you in Long Beach.
Yep, I'll definitely see you there.
All right. We thank you for tuning into the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at The Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch. Until next time, we are The Alliance.